27 years young. Happy birthday.
Well, congressional investigations into the IRS targeting scandal aren't for anyone who's necessarily in a hurry. Senior lawmakers say that they see a long road ahead as the flow of new information slows down to a trickle. This, as a brand new Fox News poll shows, about 68% of Americans think the IRS scandal is at least in some part directly tied to the White House. Let's bring in our political panel: Benkie, Republican strategist and blogger, and Mark Hanna, a Democratic strategist who is a former campaign aide to Barack Obama, and John Kerry. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Heather.
Hey, Heather.
So we are 5 weeks out from the agency's first disclosure that it had singled out Tea Party groups seeking tax-exempt status. Congress has convened 5 hearings. The IRS says that they have gathered the equivalent of 64 million pages worth of documents, and the GOP says this is far from over. What is the fallout from continuing this investigation?
Well, it's going to be big fallout for the Obama administration. I think this is the worst. I mean, there are so many scandals to pick from, but this is by far the worst one, Heather, because this affects everyone. No one likes the way the IRS operates, and they're fearful that they may be targeted because these groups were, and that's so un-American, and it is just an unbelievable problem with the government. So, yeah, I think this is not going to go away because the constituencies are going to demand it, and if this came from the White House, big trouble for the administration, of course.
Mark, what do you think? They say we've just begun.
Sure, I think the key word there is if this came from the White House, there will be big trouble. But as you said, Heather, this has been going on, this investigation by Darrell Issa and the House Oversight Committee, for 5 weeks. And the only news that's really newsworthy here is you have, for example, the most influential conservative Republican, Senator Lindsey Graham, saying there is no link between this and the White House. You have conservative Republican working at the IRS saying there's no link between this and the White House. So what we have the House Oversight Committee doing is basically putting up a sideshow showing, the IRS overpaid for hotel rooms or misused credit cards from the government, which are all absolutely something we should investigate. But it's a big distraction from the real issue here, which is the integrity of the IRS. So far, the reason that mainstream media hasn't been investigating this that much is because the House Oversight Committee hasn't been able to prove any evidence to support its accusations.
All right, Mark, I want to talk about the integrity word that you used there. When FBI Director Robert Mueller says he doesn't even know who is in charge of the FBI investigation into the IRS, how seriously do we take the president when he promises to get to the bottom of this? What does the White House stand to gain or lose by cooperating with congressional investigators?
Well, there are 3 different investigations happening here. One is the DOJ that you mentioned, so the FBI director should know who's leading that investigation. But there's also the congressional investigation happening as well, and the IG report. And the IG report came back and showed that even while there was wrongdoing at the IRS, none of that was politically motivated nor necessarily tied to the Obama administration. So, and as I mentioned before, Darrell Issa's committee hasn't been able to find any evidence to support its baseless accusations.
Well, that depends on who you listen to in terms of the partial transcripts that have been released. Isn't that correct, Didi? The partial transcripts, you listen to Chairman Issa, he says that there is a link, and then, you listen to the other side, they say that there is not. Should the full transcripts be released, Didi?
Yes, of course, and Rand Paul is saying he seems to have some inside information that there's some criminality here. So we just need, if there's no problem, if there's nothing to hide, then why don't we go ahead with the investigation? President Obama should be the #1 person who wants this, so it will be cleared. What's the problem if nothing bad has happened? If it didn't come from the White House, let's find out for sure. And also, let's remember the line dancing, and let's also remember that Mr. Spock and the Klingons, I'm sure they know and they think that they're going to do a bang-up job. But, let's have some oversight and make absolutely sure.
And I don't think anyone would disagree with that, Mark.
No, I agree. In fact, President Obama, on day 1 that this came out, he was the first one to say that he was going to cooperate and instruct his administration to cooperate fully with Congress. He shared Americans' outrage. He used that term, outrageous, in description of these acts of targeting or using search terms to target groups for their tax-exempt status.
Yeah,
so
but
I think the president is channeling the president's outrage, and nothing's happening because Darrell Issa and the committee are completely impotent politically and haven't been able to figure out what's going on.
They've got
and
frankly, I think it's a waste of taxpayer money at this point,
Mark,
5 weeks later.
How can you say it's a waste of taxpayers' money when these people were targeted? I mean, it's all Republican groups that were targeted. This is a very serious issue, and Americans don't like it. It's not right.
Evidence,
it needs to be investigated.
Mark, I do want to mention this. No evidence, but yet it has just been 5 weeks, and Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. He had what I think was a good point. He said it took 8 months to get a key figure on the ground in Libya to testify. And if you compare that to the investigation going on with the IRS, it took that amount of time to get, was it Greg Hicks to testify? We still haven't heard from these unnamed Cincinnati workers blamed for all of this.
And Cincinnati's very upset about that they're getting the blame for this. And, they're saying the underlings didn't know what they were doing. What is it? Are they inept, or is it political targeting? Let's find out. Let's see. And why does the FBI, how does the FBI director not know what's going on? How does he not know that? I don't know. It's just fishy. Everybody's deflecting, and, there's something that we don't know. So we need to uncover that.
Mark?
Yes, no, I think that Dee Dee said before, I don't know what Darrell Issa is hiding, why he's not releasing these transcripts publicly. I think he's making these accusations, and when you do this, I mean, our unemployment is at 7.5%. We're about to get involved in a civil war in Syria. We're at war in Afghanistan. All these things are happening. If you're going to start making accusations about the administration while we're at war, have some integrity and have some transparency. And I don't know what Darrell Issa is hiding. The president said, like I said before,
there's at least one worker in Cincinnati who does claim that the directive came from Washington. So we'll see if the full transcripts are released.
When we talk about Washington, though, let's be clear. We're talking about the Washington office of the IRS, not necessarily the White House. Let's be very clear with that.
And 78% of people polled say that they believe that the investigation should continue. We have to wrap it up there, but thank you both for joining us.
Because people like Dee Dee are on TV telling them that.
I guess we're not wrapping up.
Thanks,
Done. Thank you both for joining us. Tomorrow, a can't miss